Alright, what is poppin', people? We're back. Now look, before we get into this too much, I do want to remind y'all, if you haven't filled out the NU Players Survey that was posted yesterday, hey man, go check it out. I'll try to remember to link it in the description. I don't know if I'll remember to, but I'll try to. Basically, it's going to be talking about, like, how general, just how you feel about the meta. We have a whole bunch of Pokemon that we, like, are considering suspect testing in some order. So there's some, like, ranked choice voting for that. You can see how you feel about the options we gave y'all. There's some Pokemon we have just to, vote on how problematic you feel. If you have given Blastoise a 5 already, your opinion is obviously very irrelevant to me. That is not a viable take. And then just, of course, general fill in the blank where you can give commentary on, hey, maybe this Pokemon should be also suspect tested or considered. Or, hey, I was gonna say from NUBL back down and then say suspect tested ban. Anyhow, yeah, there's also two fill in the blanks for, suspect test this back down and then suspect this up. So if some Pokemon you think deserves some talk isn't in the survey already, then you can list it. Anyhow, back to the scheduled programming. We're going to be looking at SCL week, I think, 7? What week is it? Let's find out. Week 7. Wow. We are almost done. We just got week 8, and then week 9, and then the playoffs. But as we load into this week, I do want to say, these teams that were brought this week were honestly kind of, like, worrying me. Let me find one of them, and no, okay, good, that was an NUL game. Some dude legitimately brought a Morpeko and was hyping it up as, like, a Machamp partner, and I was just like, you know what? Their logic actually, I said, basically, whatever. I said, you're, so it's so bad that it's good, and then they said yeah to that. I'm like, you know what? I respect that. But where was the team that really was making me laugh? Ah, Rodri Blutar, literally, man loaded up with a PU team. I'm pretty sure if you go back to DLC to like immediate drops PU meta, this was a team that would have been built. This shit made me laugh. It's funny. Obviously, I'll talk about it more when we get to this game. It doesn't even match up badly, man. Without knowing sets or anything. I mean, Vikavolt could potentially give issues here. Sylveon's kind of a vibe check, but hey, man, he had a talent flame. And like Duraludon, if it's specs or something, it's pretty free to just click versus this. Wrench on that team is ugly as hell. I don't mean like ugly as in bad. I mean ugly as in you need to build with team aesthetics in mind next time, my guy. But as we get to this first game, TDK continues his weird obsession with Articuno. Don't really know what that's about, but it looks like it could be okay this game. And by okay, I mean it bothers Vaporeon, Xatu. It doesn't match well into Rhydon as a defogger, so it's going to be interesting to see if it's like double removal, defog Articuno plus Rapid Spin Dhelmise. I think the big question here is, since I actually bringing a Turtonator, which I actually think is kind of a cool pick. Not that I think it's good, but like, a lot of teams Fire type plus Dragon type counterplay ends up being Diancie a lot of the time. And so Turtonator having Flash Cannon for that is pretty interesting. And, I mean, hell, this game, it is actually not a horrible Turtonator angle. And the main questions obviously end up being, Talonflame speed, does it outspeed Turtonator after a smash? I think most T-Flame should be max speed right now, so you would, even if it's timid. And then just Sirfetch'd, how much does First Impression do if you're going to look to revenge kill it? And then also, like, where does it find a setup angle? Because since Turtonator is so slow and TDK actually has like multiple ways of pressuring it or revenge killing it, you kind of do have to ask yourself, where does it safely set up? A lot of these mons can, force damage onto it real early, and that's not great for it. My guess would be versus like if this is Scarf Damaru, or even like non-toxic Togedemaru, if they went U-turn, stab attack it, and wish spike you shield, you could set up versus that. But as we get into this game, We're going to see the Surfetch versus the Tokudamaru lead. And, I mean, you do live any hit here. My gut still says always switch out here. The worry would be, though, this could... no, you go Delm. Or your own Toge. Yeah, that's fine. So the reason I was worried about saying your own Toge here is, like, if he goes Turtonator just hard, that, you know, that's not the best for you. It's obviously, like, you still never stay in if you make that play, right? Because you don't want to get toxic if this has it. Hell, what if he... I was going to say Encore, but that's not how that move works. But also, if this is revealed to be Scarfed, and then, you know, it's going to outspeed you, you turn into, like, Talon. And unless you have Draco, then you can't kill it from there. Regardless, this is also just very free rock. So we do see that this is revealed to be some Wish passing set. So we'll see how that goes from here. Delmise comes out as the Ride on Rocks, and he anchors immediately. Anchor shot Delmise is something that is kind of cool to see again this generation. It's kind of vanished entirely. Mostly just because Poltergeist was added. You know, Delmise's ability Steelworker gives it stab on steel moves. And because last gen, Delmise's best ghost type move was like Shadow Claw. I guess Phantom Force as well, but that's not a move. So because it had to run on Shadow Claw last gen, now it has Poltergeist. You always just see it running Whip Polter. And while Anchor Shot definitely has some good application in hitting, you know, Guzzlord, which otherwise freely switches into you, and even chipping Drapion for more, you don't really see it too much, because most of the time Delmise is relied on to be a team spinner. Now in this build, again, say this is like Defog Articuno, I won't lie, I don't really love the idea of having this be the remover over Delm. Mostly just because Articuno matches so terribly into the rockers. It does have pressure, so you can like pressure stall out stealth rock, I suppose, but it's more to that like one-on-one I'm thinking. Like, you can't match up versus a Caporaja and defog stall it. Like, that mod is going to push you in. You know, they run, if they're rocks copper, they always have a rock move pretty much in this climate. Diancie, I don't need to explain how that one goes. Again, like we see Rhydon in this game even, it's got a good matchup. I guess Mudstale you beat up, and so if you're expecting a Mudstale out of your opponent, that could be okay. I say Mudstale you beat up, that mod has Smackdown 9 times out of 10. Unless they're like Protox or Body Press, which are significantly less common. Anyhow, all that to go back to and say, I guess he's 3 attacks Delmise probably. I don't remember if it gets revealed this game or not, but it's something. And now we are going to see the Articuno come out, as he does want to get rid of hazards. And Virizion coming in means Stone Edge. Like, that man is always going Stone Edge. And we actually end up also seeing him scout for the Air Slash, which does get shown. So this is a mixed attacking Virizion. If he has Stone Edge and Air Slash, funny, you're still walled by Dragalge. Ooh, bad mon. But I wouldn't be shocked if he was just 4 attacks. The Life Orb. I do think you end up wanting both of your stabs. Because if you don't have a grass move, imagine being walled by Vaporeon. It's like, you're already considered a bad mon, and you chose to lose one-on-one to Vaporeon? That's wild. And without CC, wow, you are choosing to be a fighting type that loses to Guzzlord. So, I don't think you can ever drop either. There's always the argument of, oh, but team support covers freeze. I don't care. I couldn't feel good about myself knowing I queued up with a grass type that gets one-on-one by a water type. That's beside the point. The scouting by TDK goes really well, and then he can U-turn as the Tokudamaru comes out. And he keeps going into his own Toge versus this, which I think is generally fine, but I still worry about if he is toxic or not. How much leeway does this mon just being out give to Turtonator? Anyhow, he gets his own Diancie in versus the Vaporeon, and this was a little bit weird to me. Because, like, I guess he just really wants rocks up. Which makes sense, right? Turtonator, I think there's a good shot that it could be boots, it could also be White Herb, though. Especially if you're worried about how bad its speed is and how prone that leaves it to getting revenge killed by, you know, say Talonflame, for instance, or just any other, like, fast Scarfer. I mean, we don't get really any guaranteed insight into his nature, I know, this game. But, I mean, Smod, let me remember, 188 times 188 is 376, times 188 times 2. It's 376, so that does give you the jump on mons like Inteleon. But since there's nothing like that on TDK's team, we don't know if he was modest or timid. I do think you'd have to be timid, just because, like, Salazzle as well. But, yeah, again, all that to say, I feel like you probably do end up still wanting White Herb, just because there's so many Pokemon that are going to outspeed you and threaten you with damage, that those defense drops from smashing could end up being more impactful. I still think Boots would be fine, and I think there's a good shot that he'd be Boots if Xatu is your only form of hazard control and has already revealed Roost Teleport. But, yeah, we do see Sensei pretty much just saying no. And this line of play just also makes me feel that this probably is not Boots on Turtonator, because he's doing, like, all he can to say no. I am not giving you your hazards. And we do see Leaf Storm from the Virizion here. Just again, helping solidify in my conscience that Sensei actually has not brought a Virizion that is going to lose to something it shouldn't. And again, yeah, we're just going to see the Xatu come out versus Diancie every time. I think this is fine. Xatu is good this game defensively. I remember watching at this point in the game and being like, ooh, is he going to try to bounce rocks again? Because Xatu's the only thing stopping this Sirfetch'd from, I mean, yeah, clicking with CC. Now, since I actually can revenge kill it, he's got, you know, Togedemaru and Virizion both. And at this point, you know, this is scarfed. I think Vaporeon tanks 1cc as well. But I do think there is a good bit of risk in giving Sirfetch'd that potential to set up and go ham. But again, Virizion's just going to keep coming in. I'm honestly impressed with how many turrets it's found to get onto the field and, like, throw off attacks. What I'm not impressed by, though, is how little damage it does. Also, is that... I don't know if that's CB damage or not. He does throw off a Psychic just immediately saying, no, I don't want Sirfetch'd ever staying in. Which I think is fair. And his Togedemaru comes out again. And Vaporeon is the response, I guess just because he doesn't care about Zing Zap potentially flinching him down, and I feel like between Rhydon, Vaporeon, your own Toad, you probably still pivot around whatever meaningless damage that this can throw off. And yet again, we are just going to continuously see Sensei just deny rocks from TDK, which I think's been pretty funny. And his Xatu's back up to full too, so it keeps checking Sirfetch'd. Stays in, yeah, that's fine. And our Rhydon comes out versus the T-Flame. I do also kind of appreciate how slow Sensei is willing to take this game. I think the big thing is just that Turtonator has such a good matchup here, especially when you confirm. I mean, look, Scarf Togedemaru isn't really threatening to revenge kill Turtonator anyway. You know, like, oh boy, you're gonna Zing Zap me for 20. Wow, how thoughtful of you. But it is still another mon that can outspeed and threaten some sort of damage, right? So who knows, maybe Talonflame Brave Bird into Sirfetch'd First Impression into Scarf Togedemaru could take out a Turtonator if he doesn't preserve his health. And so when you're looking at a team that it does pretty much just OHKO everything on once it boosts, I think it's very fine to take this more slowly than you otherwise would. Sludge Mist kind of sucks, only because, you know, it's damage. Now I remember here, Sensei, again, just plays this game as safely as he can. TDK makes a really bad overprediction, and he loses Sirfetch'd. And Sirfetch'd, I think, was shaping up to be, it had already shown, like, it was a problem for Axie to play around. Again, you're looking at itemless Xatu as your only means, really, of switching into it. That mon took 70 from Nock. And with it gone, I mean, you lose a lot of your ability to actually just force your way through Sensei's team. The rest of TDK's team is honestly really passive. You know, you're talking Spadef, Toj, and Articuno. Probably utility Talon. Even if it's SD, it doesn't ever win the game, I don't think. Unless you really make progress versus that Rhydon. I mean, the Diancie is... It's just rocks Diancie, and I don't think when you reveal Diamond Storm, you're saying, oh yeah, by the way, I'm offensive rocks. The Delm, I guess we don't know much about, but it's not... It didn't do any damage to Xatu. Now, he got rid of the Xatu there, so maybe Delmai's now could do something this game. But I don't really like TDK's outlook from here in trying to actually get past anything on Sensei's team. And we still don't have much revealed on this Togedemaru. I mean, U-turn Wish Spiky Shield, you can just assume that's the third move. That last move kind of depends, or it kind of decides whether Turtonator wants to set up versus the Togedemaru. If it's Toxic, then no. If it's Zing Zap or Iron Head, then I think you're much more safe to do so. And here I think we actually do see a Spiky Shield, just because at this point, you may as well start forcing Chip on the Togedemaru every time it U-turns. You know, yeah, you have the slow U-turn from your own Toj, but there's no reason to give him that. At least not immediately. And we also see this Rhydon eat the Freeze Dry up, but unfortunately misses Stone Edge here. That was a little bit sad to see. But fortunately for Sensei, he has the Turtonator. And that Freeze Dry does not do damage. Now, here we're going to see... Yeah, like I thought, White Herb. We are going to see TDK try to pivot around a potential Draco Meteor from this. You know, you go Talon and you switch out to this to just see, okay, maybe it's, you know, maybe if I get the special attack drop, Talon can tank a Draco from the range it'd be at and revenge kill with Brave Bird. Although even then, I think this would just smash a second time. No matter what, I think TDK has to end up praying for like luck. And we do see Flash Cannon coming in clutch there. You know, basically what we're saying is he may be scouting for Draco there and then trying to go for a Draco miss from there after the special attack drop, but it doesn't matter because Sensei Axu has Dragon Pulse, and yeah, this Brave Bird just doesn't do enough damage. I do wonder what the Delmai's set was. All we saw was it try to anchor shot a Xatu, and it did not do much damage at all. So I'm still inclined to believe that this was a bit bulkier of a Delm. But hey, Sensei has a pretty good showing in this first game. Again, he played this game as safely as he could. I'm not sure that I saw him make a single prediction this game. Wait, no. No, he really did make a single prediction. Other than, like, always saying, you know what, I'm always going to try to bounce the DNC rocks back. Even then, I don't know if you call that a prediction so much as it is him just doing the only thing he can in an Ice Stealth rock up. Otherwise, it's like, you know what, I'm attacking what's in front of me for Rizion. I'm attacking what's in front of me with Xatu. I'm U-turning with Togedemaru. But hey, I respect it. He had a really good matchup here, and it worked out. So this game I've not watched, but Expulsive is queued up with probably what I'd call some standardish two-blade balance. I think with the blade, you always need a Wish Passer unless you're using it on like some variant of offense. And then Mudstill generally fills out that core with Sylveon and the Blade pretty decently, I would say. Xatu, Great Mon. Dragalge, Great Mon. Rotombo, Great Mon. I feel like in this kind of game, you could almost justify a Specs Dragalge here. If only because otherwise your team is kind of... I don't want to say passive, right? Because Sylveon, Hyper Voice does good chip. Mudsdale you can run some offensive investment on pretty easily, and that's going to do good chip. Obviously SD to Blade is good, and Dragalge is just kind of naturally strong. Maybe I'm just sort of trying to give myself some satisfaction and say, hey, he could be a Specs Dragalge, because it's very fun to see that one-click Draco repeatedly. When we're looking at Red Sean's team, though, it's a very bulky... Yeah, it's just like bulky offense, I guess is what you call it. But he's got his defensive core of Mud, Sylve, Mantine, Escav, and just two Mons in Taurus and Talonflame that are going to hope to clean up some way. I hope it's defog on Mantine, because I really think defog Talonflame is the best way to guarantee a loss from Team Preview. I just don't think that set is good, ever. Defog Mantine has its own issues, but I think it's at least a little bit more excusable. I really... God, it's like, this Sylveon has to be Wish on this team, right? But I still almost want the Sylveon to be like Wish CM even. Just because I hate teams like this that lean so hard into one attacking stat, in this case physical attack. Like, yeah, you could overwhelm physical walls if you just keep, you know, throwing physical attackers at them, but you have a Tauros, my guy. That is it. But let's see. I do think a Scavalier actually matches up incredibly well, though, this game. Like, if it's SD, it kind of fucks. If it's CB, it kind of fucks. So we're gonna see the Xatu lead here, though. And Mantine immediately comes out. Mostly just scouting for Heat Wave, I imagine, because sometimes you will see like Psychic Heat Wave versus TP. No reason to give him that. And okay, thank goodness we are specs on one of these. Okay, that works. So it actually though isn't Wish. So that is, I guess, something important to keep in mind. Deblade and Mudsdale are gonna have to rely on their own bulk. I think specs on this makes sense. It was either gonna have. The reason I said Specs Dragalge, obviously, being I think Wish is just so good with Deblade and Mudsdale. But just one of these being a more offensive variant, I think works really well here. Now, unfortunately for Expulso, right, he is queued into the Escavalier of Dreams. You are never breaking this Pokemon Dragalge, but he doesn't need to. Also, this is CB as hell, right? I mean, yeah, it doesn't have recovery, and that knocked it 42 to a Mudsdale. Okay. I was right. This is CB Escavalier. Alright, let's go. The T-Spike will be good, just because getting a poison on, like, the Sylveon makes it a lot easier to break with your own Sylveon. And seeing that this is a CB Escav, Spec Sylveon is going to just blast through it. Hell, Dragalge even is going to blast through it. So it's not actually as difficult amount to deal with in hindsight. And of course, getting a poison on Mudsdale is just good for your Deblade. He doesn't have to rely on those specific Pokemon to switch into these guys. Like, for instance, Talonflame can help offset the efficacy of the Sylveon here. And Deblade, I mean, I feel like you're always kind of forced into Mudsdale, but we'll see how that works. The knock does 1,000,000, and he knocks again, which I think's fine. I mean, at worst, you take a little bit of EQ chip, which I don't think's a huge deal breaker. We're going to see Sludge Bomb here. I think fishing for a poison is always fine there. Mantine isn't going to threaten you back with anything. And looking at this team, you always know it is defog. And he probably wants to defog as soon as he can. And that crit is also very, 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 very helpful. I think now, yeah, you always just switch. I mean, he's always roosting after the Draco, crit or not, but having this lower is really helpful as well for Sylveon. And even just Dragalge to break through it later. And Dragalge's right back out. Let's go. Yeah, so I Draco here always. Yeah, alright. Like, Expulso makes some big boy reads. I like it, I like it. As we saw, we know this is CPS Cavalier, so he does have to sack the what's there. But Dragalge again gets to come out and click Draco. And with Mantine now gone, you can always flip turn versus the Escav too, which is actually pretty nice, just to guarantee that you're hitting it on those turns. Hey man, that knocked at 77. Oh my lord. Item Xatu? I can't tell. Rotomosca covers the Tauros 58 with Volt. I always forget how frail this mon is. It's not like this is specs. It's no, not Scarf Rotomo. But I always forget how frail Tauros is. Yo, this is a mixed Tauros. And that Fire Blast still did 41 only. How bulky are you, friend? Also, Dragalge just got blasted by Mudso. But how bulky is this Deblade for fire? Or maybe not even. I figured it out. He's naive Tauros. That's why the Volt switched to 58. Okay. Still, I feel. Maybe I'm just overestimating Tauros' special attack, because it can't be much higher than like 45. But But Deblade's special bulk is pretty laughably bad. So I'm still surprised to see like Life Orb, Sheer Force, Fire Blast do nothing. And yeah, I think from this point the Sylveon, anytime it gets a safe turn to come in, it's probably gonna claim one. We're gonna see Expulso click Hyper Voice a lot of times here, right? Yeah. At least for a little bit, you can try to crit fish. Maybe switch here. I don't think it's bad to try to get your Doublade in sometime soon, necessarily. Although, if you are one of the non-Iron headsets, then because you never really break the Sylveon. And yeah, now he's gonna go to Rotom. Now, unfortunately, you know, Brinchon always gets to Scout with Protect. And I think you go Muds to eat the trick. Oh, he actually goes he keeps Sylveon in instead. I thought Muds maybe because, well, if you want to keep Muds around for Doublade, I guess it's fine, but I still think it's the least valuable member of the team here, right? Like, it doesn't check this. Xatu is low, so I guess you could still rock up versus it, but I feel like having your Sylveon eat the trick is the least good. Well, I mean, there goes Xatu, so Muds is now looking just fine. And he's actually going to be able to trade a good amount of damage back, too, thanks to the Scarf. Wait, Redshon, you're actually in such a good position now this game. Wait. Oh, it's Bulk Up Talon. Yep, okay. Never mind, Redshon has won this game. Turns out, just needed to sack the Sylveon, and then get a little bit of chip on the Sylveon. Let's go. Alright. Well, to be fair, this Doublade could win. Maybe. Nope, okay. Let's see what the Doublade set is. So we see SD, that's normal. Alright. Please do something Doublade soon. Talon's gonna keep bulking versus it. A Shadow Claw does nothing. They both say GG. I'm unsure what that means. I'm guessing it means that Expulso is gonna forfeit soon. And we see another SD. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I mean, he just got the attacking turn wrong there. And yeah, then Spec Sylveon can't keep up. Honestly, Redshot's team, other than for the terrible aesthetics though, I do like how it worked out. And Escavalier being able to get rid of Mudsdale obviously opens up stuff for both Tauros and Bulk Up Talon. Like, yeah, Talon doesn't necessarily lose to Mudsdale. Well, you always get the burn off versus it, and in this kind of game where Mudsdale doesn't have a cleric, unless it's like Heal Bell last move on Sylveon, I could see it somehow cheesing past Mudsdale after the burn if it gets like a bulk up and then another bulk up off versus it. Toxic's always annoying, but on your team you do have your own cleric, so it's a little bit less punishing. Alright, here's the PU game. I have nothing to say about Roger's team. I guess I already said it, like if this is a Specs Dura, it goes kind of nutty. At least in terms of just doing damage. And even Vikavolt's like not the worst here. Sylveon is a vibe check for that mon to deal with. And like that is not easy. But I don't think it's like impossible to get by if you get lucky with a T-Bolt para maybe. Oh boy. Alright, let's see it. So we see Delmise lead versus Vaporeon. Maybe you get to click a button here for free. And he opts to knock. He does get the wheezing knock there. I think it's good. Lazzle can always come out pretty freely here. Yo, so Lazzle, by the way, in this game, and if Vaporeon walls it, but if you ever burn all the heal bells out, assuming you better be heal bell. I've seen this game, by the way. I know if the answer is yes or no to that, but you better be heal bell. Anyhow, so Lazzle's actually gonna get a Toxic off here, and seeing no sort of like lefties there means that it is probably just like boots NP Tox to attacks. This Toxic is huge if it stays. Because Lazzle, I guess, what range is that? Yeah, taking the Sludge Bomb does kind of suck. Because it means it can be pushed into range of the Talonflame Brave Bird a little bit sooner. But if it gets a plot off versus anything, it kind of clicks an attacking move 6 times and wins. Yeah, you need more damage on Vaporeon, but having that Toxic on it now, weakening it, that does open up Lazel's late game very easily. I guess if Vaporeon come back in here, most can come out. Look, I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. By this point in the game, I didn't think it had Heal Bell. And the spoiler is that it does not have Heal Bell. We'll see exactly what move it is last later on, but yeah, also eating the trick onto the Vikavolt there definitely makes it a little bit less annoying to deal with. Just because you can now get rocks up, you can pivot around it as well, which is a huge limiting factor for this mon. I think the big advantage to Vikavolt, I mean, we had it ranked, I think, shortly after DLC 2. Not for very long, but it was somewhere at the bottom of the VR. I think the big advantage to it is that, like, your coverage is, like, just perfect enough to where you can bother a lot of common defensive builds. Again, he queued into Sylveon. That is very unlucky. But otherwise, I think you do want to have that leeway to, you know, throw off an attack versus whatever's in front of you, and to maybe pivot out if a mon that you can't OHKO or 2-hit KO comes out next. And yeah, we see Protect revealed on Rhydon, and I'm also kind of confused as to why we're trying to waste all of this thing's E-Ball power points. You know? Oh, you know what? Dhelmise isn't Polter, so that's why he didn't stay in versus it. He's a Whip, Spin, Knock, Synth. Anyhow, the Rotom tries Volting twice versus a Sandaconda. It doesn't go well at all, but it doesn't really need to. And, wait, he actually switches. Huh. I mean, yeah, if you think he has something to take advantage of you special attack dropping again, sure. That's fine. Lazel getting brought back to full I do value in this game, just because the only means of revenge killing it is this Talon. And I'm assuming we get to a late game where Vaporeon dies to +2 on Sludge. So this mon potentially being out of range of Brave Bird is really good. Weezing comes back out. I think Salazzle's always going to come out here. Yeah. I am a little surprised he's not going Xatu to ever try to bounce a potential T-Spike. He may just think the Weezing doesn't have it, which is fair. And he may also not be wanting to risk a bird ever, which I think is all, or not a bird, a poison, which I think is justifiable enough. Like, you have a Cleric, but that's not the worst thing to want to keep it at a good amount of health. And the Sandaconda is just going to continuously spam Rock Tomb, I guess. Actually activates the Xatu's weakness policy. We've been seeing this a lot more lately, and wow. Right, so with Talon gone, Salazzle wins. Also, yeah, we're about to see why this Vaporeon Sid is very cursed and should not be allowed to exist in any way. He's Haze Vaporeon. It is October 25th of 2021. And we are running into a Haze Vaporeon. Haze Vaporeon is the most panic button answer, I think, to set up sweepers of the entire tier. And it's not that it's like an inherently bad set. Like, if you literally just fold to a certain setup mon otherwise, without it, then sure. But it just never feels very good to use. Also, he got Flash Cannon for his troubles there. I do think the only Cosmic Power Xatu I run is max speed. I do kind of like that. Now, Duraludon isn't exactly a mon you expect to run into too frequently, but I would have expected still that she'd want speed for Toxicroak. Just on the off chance that you run into one and then it's faster and can gunk shot you. Could be banking on every Croak being adamant, which is fair. A lot of them are adamant right now. Yeah. And Dhelmise can always safely come in versus the Conda. I don't envision this mon ever gets to actually keep rocks this game up. Okay, well, in this case, no, it does. He got crit by Rock Tomb and killed himself to Rocky Helmet with his Rapid Spin. Okay, that's a little tough. That is a little tough. Also, seeing lefties with Body Press Flash Cannon lets me know this is sub-Iron Defense. I guess it could be also Iron Defense 3 attacks. I just assume sub. Yeah. I think Duraludon's decent enough defensive typing and, like, physical bulk. It lets you run this. You know, you can do some weird EVs to have your sub live Scalds from woes like Vaporeon and Mantine. Unfortunately, Rodri is about to be met with the harsh realities of Sylveon versus a Duraludon without investment. Yeah. This is why I don't love this set, and why I honestly sometimes feel that the better last move is T-Bolt. Because your Flash Cannon doesn't do shit to Sylveon anyway, so why the hell run it? You know, why the hell run it? But yeah, at this point in the game, I think whenever he wants to go to Salazzle and plot up, I mean, he wins. Vaporeon's too low. Now, I mean, yeah, at this point, the Rotom Mow wins as well. The Vaporeon is going to get KO'd by a Leaf here. Or a Volt Crit. I mean, that's fine too. It doesn't actually matter. And do you have any special attack on Sylveon? I guess that's in reference to the, Duraludon? He says it sucks, but I don't really care if it, or I don't know if it mattered. For context of this situation, yeah, I mean, it likely doesn't matter, right? At worst, you're having to Hyper Voice it a second time? And it was going to be too low to ever get a sub back up, so the sweeping potential gets a little bit cut down, I guess. There, because then the Lazzle walls this anyway, so it doesn't matter. But, yeah. I guess he could have crit the next Flash Cannon. And then, Arceus has to go, like, Rotom, Volt Switch out into Rhydon, sack it, and then go, like, Salazzle. But I think from there, yeah, Salazzle could plot versus Duraludon and win, so... I agree, I don't think that crit matters at all. Or that high roll matters. Anyhow, next game. Now, I remember watching this game. And there's a very fun sequence that I guess we can talk about a little bit here. So, Kushalos has decided to load an Inteleon. And for his efforts, he was adequately punished by a Vaporeon. He's also loaded a Scrafty, though. And Scrafty, I think, is kind of just known as the destroyer of these bulky offense builds. I'd call this bulky offense. I get balanced bulky offense. Honestly, I don't know the difference between two, and I don't really care either. But Scrafty generally is known as a mon that matches pretty well into these builds that don't have a singular mon that can just overpower it in like one turn. The mon will just sit in front of whatever, bulk up 50 times, and then sweep your whole team. And if it's SM menu, you play DD Scrafty, you lead with it against every team, no matter what, and you Dragon Dance up 50 times, and they let you win. I speak from experience, people are very willing. Now see another Gallerfisk. This mon just kind of finding a way onto a lot of teams due to their like typing roll compression, which I think's cool. I mean, this probably is a ground valley. I just assume any Silvally is Silvally ground, and hey, it gives them a electric immunity, which is always pretty valuable. I mean, yeah, when you look at preview, I'm trying to think of like MNCMT's best way this game would be. The ground valley from preview has like a shot, right? And I feel like most ones always do have a shot of sweeping, but it's like damage on Xatu, damage on Rotom Mow. From there, I think you can SD and find a way to win. The main issue is that he's got that combination of two pretty decent defensive answers and then a really good offensive answer. So, you know, without the boost to attack, you're never getting by Scrafty, for instance. But without the boost to speed, Inteleon perpetually keeps you in check. And even worse, it could always be a Scarf Inteleon. On this build, I don't think it would be. I think you just go Scarf Rotom Mow, Specs Inteleon. Have that try to break shit open for Scrafty. Even Rotom Mow laid. Yeah, I honestly, from preview again, it's like Scrafty doesn't necessarily just win, but you do have to pay particular attention to it, I think. So we're going to see the Inteleon lead here. At the end of the day, right, Inteleon is going to be hard-walled by this Vaporeon no matter what. But you can always still lead with it in U-turn, so it's pretty hard to punish. And we actually see that this is CB Guzzlord, which in my little, you know, define every archetype, or identify every team you see by a certain archetype. This makes me want to call it balance. See, you got 1 offensive mon, 2 offensive mon, 3 offensive mon. And I guess one thing I could also say about MNCNT's team is that it does that annoying thing where all the offensive Pokemon are physical. And while I do see, like, So, in this game, right, this Talonflame ends up actually being a setup set. CP Guz plus SD Ground Valley can actually break for T-Flame pretty well combined together. So that's the kind of like overwhelming that I was talking about in the Expulso Renchon game, where yeah, if you just stack enough attackers of a certain type, or you know, be it like literal Pokemon type or you know, physical versus special, you can make progress that way. Look, Mudsdale, yes, it checks Guzzlord and Silvally. They don't check them both though very well over time, especially not if you like get knocked early. But we do see this Outrage, and Gallerfisk yumming it as well as it does is actually pretty funny. Gets pretty, I want to say he gets lucky there with the only 2-turn Outrage. I don't think you would have to stay in for too long here. And hey, we see another Serena! I'm happy to see Serena. I think this one's so good. But it is going to be able to spin away the rocks. We actually see this is Yawn teched, which I think is pretty cool to see. Just, again, you could force switches really well with Yawn. Protect not only making it guaranteed to get that sleep, but also giving you the extra lefties recovery. I think on, like, again, we've seen Steelix run Protect a lot in previous NU gens just because, you know, it's a bond that is always, it's tasked with taking a lot of heavy hits, and being able to just get random recovery on a mon that doesn't get a recovery move, it's a nice way to extend its longevity. And, yeah, the Gallifius gets knocked. And, yeah, so here's the Scrafty. And I think this is the beginning of the sequence. Actually, no. He went Serena first. Hold on, let's see. Okay, maybe it was the beginning of the sequence. Yeah. So what we're going to see here is MNCMT is going to wisp the Scrafty turn 1. I think that was a bad play. And, well, look, it's not even because this mon has Shed Skin. He does admittedly get pretty lucky with an early Shed Skin proc. But I think you need to start boosting immediately. So he reveals that he's Sword Stance, right? I think if he Sword Stanced immediately after taking the Drain, he would have been in a better spot instead of Wisping and Enroosting. I think if he SDs and Enroosts, that's exponentially better for him. I think then you have a bit better of a shot at getting past Scrafty. Or not even just a bit better, I think you have a much better shot at getting past Scrafty. Also, yeah, again, just the immediate proc. Yes, this has Rest. But it's still damage. It's still crippling this, maybe forcing it to use Rest. Maybe then you can look for, you know, a Guzzlord crit, or, you know, Ground Valley set up while it's asleep. And, it, you know, maybe you can bust through it with multi. But that's what we're going to see. We're going to see this Bond click Drain Punch a whole bunch. You know, bonk, 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 bonk. And before we get next game, I will be right back, so I'll catch you when I am. Alright, and we're back. Now, in this last game, Hoenn again has brought a Tangela. Now, I'm not going to say the Silvally ground hype is dead, because we're obviously still seeing it get used. But it felt like a very specialized pick there. And this is a kind of game where I look at a Tangela, and I go, this mon alone makes this a 5v6. For Hoenn, right? He's the 5. Because Tangela doesn't do a whole lot this game from preview. Now, I say that. This mon can still knock. It can still Sleep Powder. It can still even, you know, Sludge Bomb or Rotom Mow if that tries to come in. It's just, I feel its overall ability to contribute is a lot more hampered, especially if you're looking at, you know, it's his immediate switch into Rotom Mow, and these are by far, in a way, running Scarf more than any other set right now. Sounds like you're just really asking to get tricked and then vaulted on for the rest of the game to constantly cede momentum to Salazzle. You know, then you look at Quagsire even, that can probably beta Toxic versus us pretty easily. We already mentioned Salazzle earlier, but that has a field day with Tangela. Braviary, if it's sub-bulk up, that has a field day. It's just, it doesn't do anything this game. And so, the pressure is really put on a lot of the other Pokemon on Hoenn's team to contribute meaningfully, and it's kind of hard. Quagsire is going to shut down a lot of the setup attempts from, say, potentially Toxicroak, especially if this is like physical Croak. My guess is NP Croak could actually beat Quag with like Focus Blast, but you know, how many NP Croaks have y'all seen recently? I feel like I'm one of the few people that even remembers that's a set sometimes. And in Tyrantrum, I mean, hey, you have queued into double rock resist. Have fun. This is the negative gaming experience. We also see a defog Talon. I'm gonna keep it a buck. I'm just not a fan of Owen's team. Partly in general, partly just in this specific matchup. You know, is just the Quagsire is such an intelligent pick this game. Shoutouts to Vaughn, because apparently he built Confide's team. I mean, I genuinely believe that Confide doesn't necessarily have one specific win condition. It's just kind of over the span of the game, I think his team naturally will beat this one, if that makes sense. Anyhow, Owen also continues his streak of unviable nicknaming. I'm actually very close to banning him from the entirety of Smogon, because your nicknames constitute a menace to society. Anyhow, turn 1, this thing gets tricked. Turn 1, it gets tricked, and yeah, we're gonna see him, you know, pivoting around the Rotom Mow here. Confide actually just doesn't allow it though, and yep. Oh look, remember what I said at the very beginning of this battle? That this is gonna cede momentum to Lazzle constantly? Yep. And unfortunately for Hoenn too, it is an overheat Salazzle, which does not really care about Bronzong whatsoever. So Zong is already taken down to 12. And this opens up the game potentially for like a CM Comfy. You know, you've got oh look, default Comfy. I agree with Expulso. That set's awful. I thought it was awful from the get-go. I think it's awful now. I think you're more than likely going to be just Trick Defog on Rotom Mow. Again, they're like all scarfed with Trick Defog right now. Sometimes Trick Nasty Plot, but Trick Defog is just really good roll comp. We're going to see him just throw off an Overheat again though. And with this being really low, as we were saying, Comfy honestly could potentially do something if it is a calm mindset. Now I'll be honest, if it was Team Preview and I talked about the Comfy at all, I would have said Subseed Comfy 6-0s off rip, assuming this isn't like SD on Talon. I think SD Talonflame actually does beat Comfy 1v1. It's a very unfun exchange to watch go down, but yeah. Just because we also see that this was like, I at least would assume this was the rocker from Preview. That would let you know this is Iron Press, and Iron Press Bronzong doesn't beat Subseed Comfy. We actually will see that this isn't Subseed, but Subseed CM would have gone in. And so long as the Bronzong is low, I mean, I do really enjoy Confide's shot of winning the game. I don't think he even necessarily needs Zong to be low. It's just that is Hoenn's most obvious win con, I guess, on his team. If he's going to go for anything, it's probably going to be this Bronzong stalling something out. So, you know. And we also actually are going to end up seeing a pretty cool tech from Confide's Bronzong here with the Trick Toxicorp. You know, we've actually seen, I feel like we've seen a lot of random, quote-unquote, innovation from Bronzong lately, specifically to bother Xatu. Now, Trick Toxicorp also has, like, some decent other application. You know, Ghost types are a pretty common answer to Zong. Tricking them a Toxicorp helps make them less of a problem. And maybe if you're worried about Shadow Ball from Bronzong just not being enough damage, then there's that. But that's also, again, we've seen Shadow Ball for Xatu, again, Trick Toxicorp. This is an older thing, but cool to see it here. I've even seen Skill Swap run a couple of times, just so you steal their magic bounce and it can rock up versus them. And he's also revealed to be Heavy Slam, just so, you know, hey, if he runs into, like, CM Sylveon, which, frankly, could be, like, somewhat annoying situationally for this team. It'd be more like Specs, if anything, would be the annoying set, right? Because Salazzle, you know, doesn't want to risk getting just popped by Psyshock. And Bronzong at least can tank 2 Shadow Balls, so there's that. Anyhow, Quagsire is also missing Toxic there, kind of sucks, but it's not overly, like, terrible. It's not the worst. You still always have Braviary that can come in, and we do see that he is lefties, so this is going to be some bulk up. So, add another Mon on the list of Pokemon that just take advantage of this Tangela to Confide's team. Like this, I think he he was hoping for something to be on the other team. My guess is Ground Valley or Golurk. And, yeah, he didn't get that something. So, like we said, the Tangle is just a dead slot, and that's compounded on by it getting tricked immediately. Like, immediately. And this being Protect is also really nice, because it just means he can always scout out the Tangela, see what it wants to use. I'm actually a little surprised he didn't go for that there. My guess is he just didn't want to seed a switch to... I don't know. He didn't want to seed a switch to something, maybe? And yeah, Braviary subs up. And seeing Blitz on this doesn't tell us necessarily too much. Could be offensive SD. It could also just be, like, Blitz Toxic. And it actually does end up getting the Toxic on the Braviary there, right as it dies. So if this had not been Heal Bell Comfy this game, you know what? This Braviary would actually be in a horrible spot, and would be also, it would be a dead team slot, you know, it could still come in. If hazards are removed, it's not, like, overly worried from there. But it is also, seeing this as Flare Blitz Toxic makes me wonder if this is even defog. I just don't think you run no removal with how Spike's offense has actually been a kind of common in SCL up to this point. Like, I don't think you want to queue into that with nothing to remove. It's just normally see Talonflame drop the status move instead of U-turn when they go defog. So I don't know. I don't know what that is last. But like we were saying, Heal Bell Comfy now comes out. Again, Tangle is not an offensive threat, so it's always able to safely heal Bell up. And now the Braviary can go back to posing a huge threat. You know, at this point, there's like, both of these bonds are turned into a dead slot by Braviary. It is legitimately one of the most heinous Pokemon ever. There are some matchups that it legitimately just takes over because it beats up. It matches incredibly well into like a very specific set of Pokemon. Another set of Pokemon it matches horribly into. But when you have mons like Palossand or Tangela, or let's even just look at the VR. This isn't the VR! Oh, where is it? Where's that VR? Like, let's look at Pokemon Braviary just absolutely dunks on real quick. Xatu. Yeah, you dunk on Xatu. A lot of them are Nightshade as their only attack. Mudsdale. You bulk up, and eventually I think Mudsdale can't do really anything to you. I don't think Vaporeon you do as well, because I think it's actually breaking your Scald, but like something like Mantine, I believe your sub's able to stay up versus. Maybe Hurricane breaks it, but hey, they'll miss a Hurricane eventually. And obviously like things like Decidueye Delmise as well, you just feast versus. And also, again, we see the Bronzong trick away another useful item. The Colbur Berry is not going to be helpful at all, and of course, Unaware ignores all stat boosts, so this thing's +2 defense? Yeah, no. Quagsire not only is going to ignore it, but also it can just Earthquake back. I'm always assuming these are heat-proof. Especially if it lived a +2 overheat from Salazzle, like, hello? That's not happening with Levitate. And we're going to see just the Braviary come in. Already had its lefties knocked off at some point. And at this point, yeah, like I was saying, man, I don't think Confide necessarily needed to do a whole lot to win this game, but he still made a lot of, you know, good reads. Getting Toxic off on Tangela at this point doesn't really matter, but getting the trick off on it turn 1, when it was, like, yeah, his designated way of beating the Rotom-Mow, was really helpful. And what was also really unfortunate about that scenario for Hoenn is it's like, really the only thing that I think would have been truly detrimental for Hoenn is if he went... No. Let me rephrase real quick. I'm not saying what I mean to say. I feel he could have tried to go Palossand if he's just predicting a Volt turn 1. That still risks getting caught by Leaf Storm, but I don't think Confided would ever Leaf there. I think, if anything, he'd still take a Trick on Palo. But, like, Trick obviously would cripple Bronzong. We saw what it did to Tangela. Again, like, this getting tricked I just feel is a lot better, if anything. Like, Braviary sets up versus it no matter what. I guess at the end of the day, this probably would still end up getting tricked at some point anyway. I think what happens is, so say he goes Palace End instead, because he's just like, okay, I'll block a Volt. Oops, I got tricked. I feel like there's a good shot he then goes back to Tangle it, and if you're Confide it, you always just trick again anyway. In part because if you get your Scarf back, that's honestly better, I think. Just so you could potentially dump it on the Tangela, or again, maybe the Bronzong if he's willing to give you that, but I don't think he ever would. But yeah. That early trick was really good. Salazzle also popping Bronzong early on was really nice just because it forced that Mon to... And it kind of forced Ho to just be throwing out Bronzong randomly on turns just for like lefties recovery so it could get eventually that more safe rest off. Like I said as well, the intelligent Toxic, even though the first one missed, it just again further limits what the Tangela can do, which is already pretty minor once it gets tricked. Yeah, Overheat does 5 million to Palace, and yeah, this is over. Yep. I mean, I don't have anything else to say. Literally, like, at this point in the game, it is unwinnable for Hoenn unless Confide disconnects. Or Confide, like, loses both of his hands and he can't make a play. I mean, that's literally it. Yep. And we're gonna see a we have seen a Quagsire just beat down a Bronzong. Let's go. Shoutouts back to when I did a stream I built with CB Quagsire, but I was Water Absorb instead, so I lost to a Bronzong. Let's go. It was really unfortunate. I did not have a good time. I rated that experience very poorly. Seeing this as Drain Kiss, I actually do think that this was probably CM. CM, Draining Kiss, Giga, or Stored Power probably, and then Heal Bell. Which, I mean, again, CM Comfy I do think is genuinely the only good set. And while there's not too much room for experimentation with it, I think that both Subseed and then, like, Aroma or Heal Bell, I think both are pretty good. I think that's it from this one, guys. This was a very interesting week. We got some very weird teams. A constant, though, that we're seeing is more setup Talonflame has been being brought. Sylveon definitely dominating the evolution priority, I would say. Actually, no, I think Vaporeon still has more usage, it's just not winning. Well, it won this game, but it didn't, you know, Vaporeon did not do... Vaporeon came out and took some hits. That is what happened. It didn't use a move. But, again, more setup Talonflame has been being used. We are seeing Inteleon kind of creep its head back into the meta due to Vaporeon, again, losing usage, at least in the grand scheme of NU. We're seeing Galarifisk pick up some usage. We're seeing, again, Ground Valley still hang around. Serena's popping up more. I genuinely think Serena could end up rising to NU at some point. Like, it is that good. Look, NU has we have the unfair denotion of having just stealing every PUS ranker. And while that is true, you don't deserve them. They're good in NU, so we must take them. Hey man, and consider if we steal Serena, consider that a favor, right? Serena's like viewed as potentially borderline broken anyway. Y'all really want Serena around? Y'all got other great grass types that learn Rapid Spin like Eldegoss. But I hope y'all enjoyed this week. Of course, if you did, may as well leave a like. Tell me what you enjoyed about the video. And subscribe if you're watching this far into the video and still are not subscribed to me. I think if you managed to put up with me for a damn near an hour, you probably should stick around for the long haul. Anyhow, I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.